Most men want more clarity, more respect, more control over their lives, but few know how to get it. Welcome to the Bro Coach Podcast with Dennis Procopio, the founder of Man Up Life Coaching and the man behind thousands of transformed lives. Not red pill, not therapy, just the evolved man's blueprint for strength, presence, and purpose. All right, men, welcome to another episode of the Bro Coach Podcast. I'm Andrew Bontz. I'm here with Dennis Procopio. Welcome, Dennis.
Hey, thanks, man.
Man, I'm so excited to get into the topic that we're talking about today because back in July, you wrote what at the time you said was one of your best blog posts that kind of spoke about culture that you've built over the last 14 years. And it's talking about man codes. So I wanted to get your, background and why you were inspired to write that blog post and kind of introduce the men to the blog post so we can kind of then get an idea of what it's about.
Sure. So do you have it open in front of you by any chance?
Yep.
What jumped out at you about it initially?
It's just written in a different style, and it's not necessarily what most other kind of like man blogs are written about, as it breaks down each individual point. And my goal here is to kind of dive into each one. So I think that just how it was written, it just felt, kind of ancient almost.
Well, that's really interesting. So let's say you're a dude, which you are, right? Presumably. And you never know these days. You got to ask. But let's say you're a guy who's reading that and you hit something and you go, I like this. What's the first, you're some dude listening to this going, what are these two on about? What's the first thing that hits you? Pull it right out of the text.
Well, number one talks about practice being peace. And I can just read it. You are both creator and created. Creation is your nature. Nature is in all bodies, and all bodies are in nature. You know this best when you practice stillness. Therefore, practice stillness in all situations, whether in motion or at rest, as even in rest there is motion. Practice being peace. So it sounds like a Dr. Seuss kind of.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. So when I wrote this, it was like I was thinking very carefully about what we seem to be going through. And if I remember correctly, I used a picture of a dude holding like a scale. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yep. Like scale, like almost like, measuring or weighing. And that's kind of what guys do. We're always looking for balance in life, and we're trying to measure, am I too passive? Am I too aggressive? Am I too empathetic? Or am I too brutish and not empathetic, not too logical and robotic? So the man code is something that I think every guy needs. A guy needs a code. I truly believe that. Because if you have a code, then you can justify all of your choices. I am a person who, let's say, doesn't hit women. That is a part of my code. I don't hit women. I am a person who believes that if you say something, you have to do it. That is a part of my code. If you don't want to do it, then it's real simple. Just don't make a promise you can't keep. I am a person who does not believe in corporal punishment for the most part, but I have a son, and I'm not going to say that there haven't been moments when I didn't, reflex on him when he punched me in the face or something as a way of saying, hey, if you don't like it, don't do it. So my point is, every man needs a code. I don't care what your code is. Somebody's going to come along and have you been on the internet lately? There's always going to be somebody who is going to say, oh, I completely disagree with that. Or that's such heteronormative, thinking, or that's so binary, or that's so whatever. I don't care about any of that. What I care about is that if I can go to sleep at night saying, here's my code, I'm sticking to it, and I will die by this code, unless somebody can come along and either emotionally or rationally encourage me, persuade me to amend my code. Now, before I go any further, check in with me. How does that sound to you? What do you do with that when you hear me say that?
I mean, it builds on some of the other episodes that we talked about, and having that code and having the filter, and kind of goes along with some of the stuff we talked about with masks and things. So I think we're circling back to a few of the previous episodes and some themes here, but diving into more of the code of Dennis, right? Code of this community, in why, as we look at this blog post, how each piece fits in.
Okay. So a guy comes to Man Up Life Coaching and he says, I need a code. And what he's looking for is exactly what I said. Just, do I hit girls or not? When is it okay to hit back? Do I leave the toilet seat up or down? Whatever. Do I listen, or do I tell her, go tell that crap to your sister? Whatever. That's the basic code that guys are looking for. I've always joked and said, Man Up Life Coaching's motto should be, come for the abs, stay for the enlightenment. And there will probably be some self-work and some relationship counseling in between, right? And a client of mine who has a sick media marketing company, Ben Giles, the owner and creator of Red Banana Marketing, heard me say this in session, come for the abs, stay for the enlightenment. And he was like, dude, that's your money right there. You should run with that. So what we're doing is we're talking to all the guys who might have come looking for the man code that says the basic lower level physical stuff, but then gets this and is like, hell is this all about? It's like, I feel like I just found like some weird Bible or something. So here we go. I'm going to talk about it. I decided to take 10 points, like 10 commandments, and turn them into a usable set of guidelines. The first one says, as you said, you are creator and created. Creation is your nature. Nature is in all bodies. All bodies are in nature. You know this best when you are practicing stillness. Therefore, practice stillness in all situations, whether in motion or at rest, as even in rest there is motion. Practice being peace. Now, when we practice stillness, if you're someone who comes from a sort of legalistic religious background, you might use the term prayer. If you're someone who has taken either a spiritual but not religious or yogic paths into mental and physical mastery, and understanding your spiritual identity, you might have learned that meditation is a better word to use for you than prayer. I don't, from a certain height, they're the same thing. There are people who don't use the term meditation or prayer, but who have experienced a flow state while hunting, while fishing, while painting the broadside of a barn, while sitting in a DMV waiting for their number to come up. So when I say practice being peace, all I mean is whether you are sitting in a sauna after a workout, like really in the zone and feeling exhilarated, lifted, and like you are just the sun in the center of the universe, or whether you're on the back of a motorcycle riding through LA traffic, filtering between cars that could, turn and kill you at any second, but your heart rate is as chill as though you just woke up and are sitting on the edge of your bed, because your body is moving, but your core is peace. You're the eye of the storm. Practicing being still will only teach you about all the nuances of vibration. And any scientist will agree that there is no such thing as a particle in our universe that is not in vibration. So when we say we catch a vibe, we mean that we are experiencing vibratory interactions, like ripples interacting, and being still helps us to triangulate exactly where we are in any given situation. Does that make sense to you?
Yes. And one of the words that he used throughout is practice. Can you explain why that's such an important piece of each of these codes as we go through them today?
Yes. I don't know who it was who came up with the little ditty that, to master something, you have to have 10,000, hours, reps, right? I think at last count, I'm at 25,000 hours of doing what I do under this brand as a code. But when it comes to the stillness piece, I learned to practice stillness in situations where not being still could have been could have literally been fatal, or you don't know, but I'm telling you. So when we practice something, we're saying there's something that I do not yet do well, and I want to try to do it over and over and over. And I think people misunderstand, and they say practice stillness. Oh, I could never practice stillness. I'm just a total spaz. I'm totally hyper. I'm like, I got a need for speed. I'm ADHD. I'm like, like lightning in a bottle, but there's no bottle that can contain whatever this is. And so you say, don't argue for your limitations. You, more than anyone, should practice stillness. And when I started meditating, the person who taught me the importance of meditation, he was running an ashram And I'm sorry if that sounds stupid, but it's true. I mean, I went to the Ozarks up in Leslie, Arkansas, and there was a dude up there by the name of Michael Caine, which of course sounds a lot like cocaine, but that's the guy's name. He's since passed. And he was he had built a meditation retreat. And he was a real rough sort of man's man. He was the last person you'd ever expect to build a meditation retreat up in like a dry county, like hillbillies up in, at that time in the 90s in the Ozarks. And he had this big chair in the middle of this big hunting lodge. And he said, "You see that, kiddo? That's my meditation chair." And I said, "Cool story." He's like, "Yep." He's like, "I sit in that once a day." And I say, "Okay, cool. So that's my first lesson?" He's like, "Yep. Your first lesson is that you decide that there's a place and a time that you're going to meditate. And even if you put your butt in that chair and jump right back up, doing it once a day will begin to start develop the neural pathway for meditation." And so when I start clients on meditation, I tell them you just have to sit down for like a second once a day. Just sit down and say, "I'm meditating," and then jump back up. That becomes 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, an hour, 8 hours, your entire existence. That's what we mean by practice.
Yeah, I think that I just love that concept of acknowledging you're not good at something. And something you said that I don't want to gloss over is don't argue for your limitations. Because how often do we as individuals have that self-talk that is arguing for our limitations, kind of arguing for our false beliefs or the imposter syndromes or the not enough or the I'll nevers or I can'ts, and all of those little statements that can be so small in one moment, but can train ourselves to believe something, even though it's not true. It's just made up because we told ourselves. So I just love the concept of practice and reps and how woven into the fabric of our lives it is, or it's not, depending on who you are and how you live. Just love that.
Yeah. So I want to give credit where credit's due. That term, argue for your limitations, is I'm carrying the torch for Richard Bach. Now, in the 70s, Richard Bach was popular as the author of the book Jonathan Livingston Seagull. He also wrote a less popular book called Illusions, The Adventures of a Reluctant Messiah. And in that book, there is a mentor character and there is the seeker who is the author writing this book as though it was like, a real thing that happened, but it's kind of, clearly a fiction, but he writes it as though it's something that happened. Like my experiences with this teacher. And the teacher, who is an Indian guy, but not like you'd think. He's like a dude in jeans and he flies a biplane around for money. And he's an interesting character that Richard Bach has written. And in their dialogues, what this character, Donald Shimoda, is trying to help Richard to understand is that Richard imagines that seeing is believing, and what Donald is trying to help him to understand is that believing is seeing. And so he gives him a little book to read called The Messiah's Handbook. And comically, it has the same energy as this post that you're referencing. These little ditties. And one of the little ditties is, argue for your limitations, and sure enough, they're yours. And so here I am at almost 55 years old, sitting here doing a podcast, having become Dennis of Man Up Life Coaching and everything that means. And I was once a 7-year-old kid reading Illusions and already thinking along the lines that there's something suspicious about what I see versus what I sense viscerally. And I'd like to get to the bottom of it. And I dare say that through practice, I wouldn't say I've gotten to the bottom, but I'm in pretty deep.
I'd say so too.
Yeah, man.
All right. So one of the things that you and I both know that most of the men that come to the bro coach methodologies are smart, intelligent men. So number 2, we've talked a fair amount about stillness and practicing it in a couple previous episodes, but we haven't necessarily talked about intelligence. So number 2 is you are natural intelligence. There is no artificial substitute for your energetic contribution to the hive mind. Your thoughts are our thoughts. We think, move, breathe as one. In stillness, you're reminded of our singularity in our genuinely indivisible nature. Divisible nature? Quiet yourself.
Indivisible. With the justice for all. Yeah.
Quiet your self-talk. Practice being intelligence. I think this one's super interesting, and I'd love to hear your remarks to number 2.
Okay. So it's funny that because I'm still a teenager at heart, you can't say number 2 without me going, and I think that's actually kind of part of it all. The moment you take your own bullshit too seriously, that's where you start screwing up.
Like the movie Austin Powers, where who does number 2 work for?
Yeah, precisely. I mean, because the thing is, this is a cosmic joke, and we're currently these tragic comic shitbags walking around trying to have a spiritual experience in spite of this bizarre biological conundrum. So, yeah, we'll talk about this. Don't get it twisted, man. I'm just saying I learned some stuff, but I'm not saying I'm better than anybody else. I put my pants on one leg at a time like everybody else. But yeah, you are natural intelligence, right? What does that mean? It's important. The word natural is important to me because whether you're talking about outer nature, like go touch grass, or you're talking about inner nature, like close your eyes and go within, the only difference between outer nature and inner nature is your perception that there's an outside and an inside, and that's a construct. So the reality is everything is everything. When I say there's no artificial substitute for your energetic contribution to the hive mind, that's fancy, but I'm kind of tipping my hand to the idea that we are sort of artificial intelligence when we copy and paste ideas. You know, like I was thinking about this yesterday. I was thinking about language and how we don't even realize what freaking parrots we are, but like language just moves through us like a wave, these trends. For instance, the term, you know, Oxford just coined rage bait as the term of 2025. Yeah. And I hear so many people these days using this language as though it's always been around. You know, we're going to circle back. We're going to make sure we're aligned. We need to be in lockstep. And all of this, oh my God, she's totally Delulu or whatever. And it's like, that is not intelligence. That's an echo chamber that's just language doing what language does. But when I say your energetic contribution to the hive mind, it's a complicated way of saying it's all vibration, like I just said. What makes it vibrate? Energy. What is energy? Well, it's matter times light squared. No, that doesn't tell me what it is. That just gives me a sort of a relative understanding of how to quantify it or even qualify it. But no one gives an explanation for what makes a heartbeat or what makes it stop. There is no definition for energy that anyone can really go to sleep at night saying, oh, well, that explains it. However, we all know what it is because we're all experiencing it. We are practicing being vibration all the time. And so when I say your thoughts are our thoughts, what I mean is that anything you experience, I experience. Anything that you see, I see.
Hey man, stop spinning your wheels. If you're serious about leveling up your career, your relationships, and your mindset, it's time to man up. At Man Up Life Coaching, we cut the excuses and build discipline, confidence, and purpose. Book your free strategy session now at manuplifecoaching.com/application. Don't fill it out if you're not ready to grind, but if you are, this call could change your life. Man Up Life Coaching, elite life coaching for men by men.
Thought manifest as things, which is why language is so important. I say we think, move, and breathe as one. Well, gee, if you back up far enough from planet Earth and look at it from the position of an outlier, you basically see a giant organism. Like for real. And so it's not wacky to say that we think, move, and breathe as one, but we're too close to it to appreciate that. When it says, in stillness, you are reminded of our singularity and our genuinely indivisible nature. I'm reiterating, when you're still, completely still, there is inevitably an aha moment where the self-talk, I am human, I have hands, I breathe oxygen, I am white, I am black, I am bald, I am female. Blah, 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 blah. When that script stops, there's a moment of absolute awareness that is neither entirely inner nature nor entirely outer nature, because at that moment there is no partition between inner nature and outer nature. And what that partition is the ego, it's the I. And that is the moment that could arguably be called the top of the funnel for becoming enlightened. And when we say our genuinely indivisible nature, all I mean is you don't really ever remove anything from the world. It just goes somewhere else. And the reality is everything is, and quieting your self-talk helps you to know that from a position of meta consciousness. And when I use the term meta consciousness, I mean what a Christian might mean when they say that everyone was filled with the Holy Spirit and had flames of tongues above their head and all, were shining, so to speak, and were in the Spirit. I also mean what George Lucas meant in Star Wars when we all use the Force. And there's a moment at which we understand that the Force is our meta consciousness, etc. Okay, so it all sounds crazy when you talk about it, but so does anything if you really look about it. We just take it all for granted. Oh yeah, the sky's blue. You're just comfortable. Okay. Oh yeah, we combust oxygen and then breathe out some carbon dioxide. Then the trees just do the same thing in reverse. It's like a symbiotic relationship ad nauseum. Pull my finger. Like you just take that for granted. So yeah, being intelligence is being quiet for long enough to understand that when you identify with the highest mind, whether you call that God, Allah, Hashem, the Buddha, what have you, Great Spirit, quantum entanglement, whatever you want to call it, calling it isn't the important part. Practicing being it is. Copy?
Yeah, I think it's much different take on intelligence, right? Because most people think intelligence, it's smarts, right? Book smarts, and it's not necessary. It's very far from how most people use the word intelligence, and it's a lot more emphasis on the natural, right? So that's kind of how you kicked off your answer, is emphasizing getting in touch with our nature.
Yeah. So the thing that the big scary ooga booga that everybody is afraid of in terms of the AI and robots taking over is the idea of machines somehow acquiring sentience and free will. Right now, what they do is they parrot us, they imitate us, and they imitate us through language. They imitate our self-talk, and they also demonstrate what we call reasoning and logic. And so it's so incredibly convincing that you have people who develop these emotional relationships with what they imagine is this sentience behind the program, but it's really just it's an LLM doing what LLMs do. They mirror, they parrot. And so what I love about AI is it's this sort of, we're this ape holding a skull in the middle of the universe and looking at it in the mirror of technology itself and beginning to understand this thing is parroting exactly what we have historically called intelligence and measured as intelligence quotient, which is capacity for memory and ability to problem solve. And yet, when you remove those attributes, what's left is that essence that I described both as the Holy Spirit or the force or whatever you want to call it. I don't want to call it anything. That's not interesting for me, labeling it, because it's outside of language. And even Judaism understands that. That's why God is spelled G-D or GD. You don't put a label on that which is labelless. And so practicing being intelligence is very careful language. I did not say practice being intelligent. We've got Asia for that. Practice being, see, that's one of those things that I say and I'm like, boom, canceled right there. But that's true. It's true. It is a fact that is part of China's cultural integrity, is demonstrating memory and problem solving and being optimally performative, like a machine. And even India has, I have Indian clients who I have to tell them to meditate. Now that's comical because they're so busy being data analysts or, software developers or whatever, that they're kind of losing what happens at the top of the food chain, which is being Brahmin, which is being primarily concerned with the spiritual holistic identity. Now, if we go to number 3, the third point, it says, you understand the nature of reality, but you must not get caught in the web of illusion. Boom. The Indian culture has a name for that. It's Maya. If you watch The Matrix, you will understand what Maya is. It's interesting. Any linguists out there will definitely have a field day with this one. If we take Ma, we will see that it is inherent in anything that supports the idea of this way of perceiving reality in this particular system. Ma, mother. Ma, Mary. Ma, Ma'at. The ancient Kemetic, pre-Isis incarnation. Mater, right? Matter, stuff. Alma mater. I can do this all day. Like I say, Matrix. And so what you're seeing when you see the world is you're seeing something that's not unlike a hologram. It's not unlike a trick of light or a house of mirrors. And a Christian can relate to this because Jesus basically said, be in this world, not of it. I mean, that's not a quote, but I mean, that's the gist. we're just passing through here. And we need to just kind of tread lightly and trust that the will of the highest intelligence will manifest on earth as it already is currently in heaven. And I can point to the Quran and say that the Quran says, backs these ideas up as well. I can point to Judaism and say that Judaism backs these ideas up as well. Kabbalah definitely backs these ideas up. Gnosticism, Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, all of it. If you back up from this planet far enough, the donut hole is described by the donut. The donut is the actual place where the play happens. And when we say reality, we mean a collective experience with a physics engine whose code we collectively and precognitively agree to so that we can have this experience and work out lessons in this sort of cosmic dojo. Now, did I lose 99% of my audience? Sure. But my target demographic is that 1% who either says this guy actually knows what he's talking about, or I have no idea what this dude's talking about, but it feels right. I want to learn more. So when I say practice being real, I only mean when you see things you misperceive because things are not absolute in their objectivity. When you see the nature of things, you experience reality. Look, listen, hear, smell, feel. Practice being real only means practice meta consciousness, meta awareness, so that you understand that physics are contained within meta physics, which is not actually physical in the absolute sense that we love to think that it is, but rather it is chaotic event like a flame that satisfies all the criteria for being a noun and a verb and a living thing. It consumes oxygen. And yet, it's never the same flame twice. In the history of fire, the tongue of flame has never once repeated. That's amazing. What do you think of that? Back to you. Caveman looks at the fire and says, well, now that you put it that way, hold on, I got to go take a dump. And we're back. Like, it sounds super cool, but it's really just a fancy way of saying something that's really unfancy. It's just nature.
Yeah, and I think one of the main books that you recommend once you join the cultural here, and I haven't done a great job of sticking to it, but I have read probably the first 50 or so stories, parables, or messages, I guess, in there. Mm-hmm. And one of the messages is talking about what is reality, like what is real. And just because you see it, you know, if you talk about like when you see things to where it's like, well, you're not necessarily seeing a thing, you're just seeing like light reflected off of certain things, and it's sent through your eyes and beamed to your brain, and then your brain reads it one way and everyone perceives it a little bit different. So the more you dive into it, the more like, oh, what is reality? And what is real and what is not real, right? And you go too far down the rabbit hole, you start sounding like you're 2 steps away from falling into the loony bin, or you've smoked a little bit too much of the ganja, and you're about ready to throw some dreadlocks on in the 1970s and And say peace and love, everybody, you know.
Yeah, and so that's not wrong. It's just it's this echo chamber again of association that becomes kind of this like I'm thinking about those carnivorous plants, not the ones that are more obvious in their functionality, where the Venus flytrap, where it just kind of closes on you like a bear trap. But I'm thinking about the ones where it's kind of like a little well, and you go, "Ooh, this smells nice," and you just kind of go into it, and then you never come out. In the end, that's kind of the challenge that we're in currently, in what we're calling reality. For as long as we use our I checkmated myself right in mid-sentence, because the reason that you meditate is there's no way to say the thing that makes it make sense. So I'll only say, yes, you're right. There are books that, if you back up far enough, are all saying the same thing. I started with, you should sit down and shut up and try to be still. And I will probably end this piece on that same note. Now, the fourth point, it would be awesome. Where are we at for time? Because it'd be awesome if we could get through this thing.
About 10, 15 minutes. So I don't know if we'll get to all 10, but we can come back to on the next episode to the
fan wave. Okay, because I'd rather, Robert Pirsig in Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, speaking of books, it goes kind of down a rabbit hole trying to do exactly that. He tries to analyze analysis itself, which is an exercise in futility, as a way of understanding what's between the parts. And he's an engineer in real life, so I get it, that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to take the horse apart to find its hoarseness, so to speak. Peeling an onion, looking for its fundamental onionness. And he says, I think that in this day and age, and the book was written in the 70s, he says, I think in this day and age, we're more concerned with what's new than with what's best. And I think we need to slow down, and instead of widening the channel, I think maybe we need to focus on deepening the channel. And we live in a time where attention span is being reduced to like that of a fruit fly. So that's why more than ever, we should practice slowness and stillness. So I guess I'm going to commit. If we don't get to the end of this, then maybe we'll pick up next time. So the fourth point is you are strong. A weak man imagines that love is weakness and that hatred is strength. The weak offend, the strong transcend. A man who hates another man attacks both himself and his fraternity. A man who supports another man reinforces himself and the strength of our fraternal order. Practice brotherly love. It's a mouthful. Let me make it real simple. When the finger attacks the finger, the hand attacks itself. When the hand attacks the hand, the body attacks itself. When a man attacks a man, humanity attacks itself. And we can keep doing this all the way up the ladder. So the alternative to attack is, well, somebody might think, oh, the opposite of attack is defend, but that's not really where I'm coming from here. But let me not position them as opposites. Let me say instead that in this system, we're either attacking or we're healing, right? We're either dividing, like fission, or we're uniting, like fusion. So what brotherly love is, it's these moments of, well, I'm going to get back to the my sort of Pentecostal allusion with the tongues of flame, or being in spirit, or being in oneness, or being in the flow, or chi, or whatever. What brotherly love is it's when two meet as one. Because in that moment, in the moment where 8 little triangles go, we're a pizza, there's a moment of transcendence there that has nothing to do with fusing the triangles back together. It's just about understanding that no matter how far you separate those 8 slices, sorry, fellas, you're still a pizza. That's your common denominator. Yeah. And finally,
It's very Italian.
just yeah. Right. My Jewish side wants to say, and so therefore the universe is just a giant everything bagel. That again, we can get lost. Remember that flower I was telling you about? We can get lost in the metaphors, seeing the metaphorical relationship between metaphors. So let's get out of that house of mirrors and say that if I didn't exist, there would be nothing to reflect. So 5, you honor all creation with respect and humility. Women, children, animals, plants, anything and everything that is in our perception shares our nature. To respect all creation is to fully know the nature of reality. Practice respect for all creation. Again, if I wanted to go simply, I could say, everything I ever needed to know, I learned in kindergarten, right? Like everybody knows right from wrong. We know fundamentally that there's something off with you if you see a puppy and you're like, oh, I want to punch that in its face. You know, oh, a bunny, I want to step on it and break its back. Like that's not built into us. What's built into us is identification. Whatever that indefinable is, which is the commonality, that which is awareness, that which is intelligence. When that recognizes itself in all things, quote unquote, then we're right side up. When the part want to attack each other, then that is nature out of balance. I think there's a Native American word, koyaanisqatsi, starts with a K. If you ever want to check out the film Koyaanisqatsi, it speaks to this. It's kind of fascinating. But how do I simplify? We're shitbags. Yeah, that's where I started. Yeah, we're shitbags. And so as shitbags, we should practice being still so that we remember that we're not just shitbags, we're glorious shitbag. And we are created in the image of light and love. So I guess when we speak next time, we can get on to the 5 remaining pieces, which are practice faith in the infinite nature of existence, practice transcendence, practice good words and thoughts, practice good deeds, and practice being home. If you don't have the attention span for all of that, I'll fast forward to the last page. When you practice stillness, which was the first ask, you practice being home. Kind of like Dorothy and friends in The Wizard of Oz. They had to take an entire journey to discover that they were always home. And that whatever they were looking for was always right here. So I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, yada, 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 infinity, am I right? And the way we do this is we practice stillness and being peace under all perceivable conditions until we understand that what we're looking for is ourself. We got lost and we're looking for home. And the revelation at the end of this book isn't just that we're home, is that literally we are home. And on that note, do push-ups or you're a homo. And people, I don't know, to end with some like real dude thing. You know, girls are dumb. I don't know. So, like, yeah, it's you see it, Andrew. What are you coming away with off of this?
Well, I think that if you're a dude listening to this and you got to this point, you're like, man, I don't know what the hell he's talking about, but it feels like home or it feels different. And I think that's what a lot of dudes connect with Dennis. It's one of the things that I connect with when I met him on my podcast 3-4 years ago. Is it just like, there's something different about this guy, and I don't know what it is, but it's not the rest of those like weird life coaches with a certificate that they took for a 6-week course. You know, it feels different. So, and to me, it felt like home. And that's one of the reasons why I like being part of this community. And I love being part of this project of the Bro Coach podcast. So if you guys like what we're putting down, follow us, share this stuff on social media, rate a review on Spotify or iTunes or your favorite podcast app. And let's keep the conversation going. Come back next week to part 2 of this conversation as we talk more about the different man codes and break down the bottom 5 of the conversation here.
And I will say on my way out the door, as the proverbial bro coach, I've told you in every single episode, the coach part is less interesting for me than the bro part. And the bro is brother. And the brotherly love part means that if you love your brother, you love yourself. And if you love yourself, you love your brother. And when we understand this, not just as a cool thing to say, but as something that we can practice, that's the way this book ends. It's a book with a happy ending. And I don't mean like, happy ending. Well, sorry, I'm still a dude. And brotherly love, that's what it's all about. All right, fellas, listen, I'm going to jump into a session with a guy But until the next time, thanks, and I'll see you on the other side.